Have you ever wondered how our world became so fast? How we went from horses and buggies to highways packed with cars? A huge part of that story belongs to one man, Henry Ford. He didn't just build a car, he built the modern world as we know it. But his journey was far from a smooth ride. It's a tale of relentless ambition, revolutionary ideas, and a legacy that's much more complex than you might think. Stick around as we uncover the incredible life story of Henry Ford, the man who put the world on wheels. Henry Ford was born on a farm in Michigan in 1863. From a young age, he was fascinated by machines. While other kids were doing farm chores, young Henry was taking apart and reassembling everything he could get his hands on, like his father's pocket watch. He hated farm work. He saw it as repetitive and inefficient, and this early disdain for wasted effort would become a driving force throughout his life. At just 16, he left the family farm and walked to Detroit to become a machinist's apprentice. This was his first real step into the world of industry, a world he was destined to reshape forever. In Detroit, Ford worked various jobs, learning everything he could about engines. By 1891, he landed a job as an engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company. Here's a cool fact: he actually met Thomas Edison, who encouraged Ford's experiments with gasoline engines. While working for Edison, Ford spent his nights and weekends in a small brick shed behind his house, tinkering away. It was in this shed, in 1896, that he built his very first car, the quadricycle. It was basically for bicycle wheels attached to a frame powered by a small engine. It wasn't pretty, and it had no brakes, but it worked. He had created a self-propelled vehicle, and this success ignited a fire in him that would never go out. But having a car was one thing. Building a car company was another challenge entirely. Ford's first two attempts at starting a company failed. His first, the Detroit Automobile Company, went bankrupt because he was too focused on perfecting his designs instead of selling cars. His second venture also crumbled due to disputes with his financial backers. They wanted to build expensive cars for the rich, but Ford had a different vision. He dreamed of a car that was affordable for the average American family. He believed transportation shouldn't be a luxury. This wasn't just a business strategy, it was a deeply held belief. Finally, in 1903, the Ford Motor Company was established. This time, things were different. Ford had learned from his past mistakes. He knew he needed a winning product. After going through several models, from Model A to Model S, he finally unveiled the car that would change everything. In 1908, the Model T was born. It was simple, sturdy, and reliable. Ford famously said customers could have it in any color they wanted as long as it was black. Why only black? Because black paint dried the fastest, which was crucial for his ultimate goal: mass production. The Model T was an instant hit, but selling lots of cars created a new problem: how to build them fast enough. This is where Ford's true genius shines. He and his team didn't invent the assembly line, but they perfected it for complex manufacturing. Before, a team of workers would build a car from the ground up in one spot. Ford turned this on its head. He created a moving assembly line where the car chassis moved along a conveyor belt, and each worker performed one specific simple task over and over again. This dramatically cut down the time it took to build a car from over 12 hours to just 93 minutes. Production soared, and as it did, the price of the Model T plummeted, making it truly a car for the masses. With his production skyrocketing, Ford faced another challenge: high employee turnover. The repetitive work on the assembly line was mind-numbingly dull, and workers were quitting in droves. Ford's solution was as revolutionary as the assembly line itself. In 1914, he made a stunning announcement. He was doubling the average wage to $5 a day. This was unheard of at the time. He also reduced the workday from 9 hours to 8, creating the three-shift workday. The $5 day wasn't just an act of generosity. It was a brilliant business move. It stabilized his workforce, attracted the best mechanics, and, perhaps most cleverly, it turned his own workers into potential customers who could now afford to buy the cars they were building. Henry Ford became a global icon, one of the richest and most famous men in the world. But his story isn't all triumphs. He was a man of stark contradictions. He was a pacifist who opposed World War I, even sailing a peace ship to Europe to try and stop the fighting. Yet, his factories became a vital part of the arsenal of democracy during World War II, churning out bombers and other military equipment. He was a visionary innovator who championed progress, but he was also deeply resistant to change later in his life. He stubbornly insisted on producing only the Model T for years, even as competitors like General Motors offered more modern cars with more features and color choices. His personal views were also highly controversial. He published a newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, which was used to spread hateful and anti-Semitic articles. These writings were widely condemned and remain a dark stain on his legacy, showing a side of him that was intolerant and prejudiced. It's a complex and uncomfortable part of his story, but it's essential to understanding the full picture of the man. He was a genius who could see the future of industry, but was blinded by his own prejudices. By the 1930s and 40s, Ford's health began to decline, and his grip on the company weakened. His only son, Edsel, who was president of the company, died in 1943. An aging and sometimes erratic Henry Ford resumed control, but the company floundered. Finally, in 1945, his grandson, Henry Ford, II, took over and began the difficult process of rebuilding the company and modernizing its management. Henry Ford passed away in 1947 at the age of 83, leaving behind a world he had fundamentally transformed. So, what is the legacy of Henry Ford? It's the assembly line that's still the basis of manufacturing today. It's the idea of a fair wage and the creation of a middle class with purchasing power. It's the freedom and mobility that the automobile brought to millions. But it's also a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and prejudice. Henry Ford was a complex, flawed, and brilliant figure who put the world on wheels, and in doing so, created the blueprint for the 20th century. His impact is all around us, every time we get in a car and hit the open road. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of people who changed our world. See you in the next video.